Welcome to Twin Talk. This is Joy, and I'm here with my sister Angie. And today we will be discussing the book Confessions of a Prairie Witch: How I Survived Nellie Oleson and Learned to Love Being Hated. We will be using the word witch instead of the B word to keep this family-friendly and G-rated. Before we start, we are going to recap our love, our fascination with the Little House on the Prairie books written by Laura Ingalls Wilder and give our thoughts about Nellie Oleson. So, Angie, I know we've had a podcast in the past. It was about a Little House on the Prairie book. Which one was it?
Oh, gosh.
I think it was just Little House on the Prairie.
I think it was Little House on the Prairie, yeah.
And we love the books. And in that podcast, I even remember telling the story how we didn't have heat upstairs in our home, and we had a propane stove in the winter, and Angie and I would get in our long nightgowns, just like Laura and Mary, and we would get in our sleeping bags. And I remember our mom had bought us the whole set of the Little House books, and I remember reading by that propane stove until I would fall asleep at night. And I just love the books, and I'm now in the process still, and I think I said this last time too, but just the other night. Now, this is kind of sad, but when my daughter doesn't really want to pay attention and just wants a book to fall asleep to, she'll say, "Mom, read one of the Little House books." But she does like them and enjoy them, but I'll read them and she'll fall asleep to Little House books.
Oh, that is awesome.
So, is there anything else you want to share about our fascination or love for the Little House on the Prairie books?
I mean, no, just basically we grew up watching the show. You know, we only had 3 channels, and that was one of the shows that came on routinely on one of our channels we got. And then, of course, we loved the books. So we're very familiar with the books and with the characters of the show.
And what did you think about Nellie Oleson when you would watch the shows when we were younger? When you were watching the show, what were your basic thoughts about Nellie Oleson?
Just that she was awful, and she was mean, and she was a true biatch. And, I mean, she was very memorable, and you just loved to hate her.
Right, and we're going to bring this up later, but that's just a testimony to what a great actress she was, because she was so hated. And we're going to share some stuff with our listeners about just how hated she was.
Oh, yeah.
So will you go ahead and share the details and the publisher's summary?
Yeah, so the book is by Alison Arngrim, who played Nellie Oleson, and it's also narrated by Alison Arngrim. And we're going to talk a lot about what a great job she did as a narrator, and how enjoyable she was. A
lot of times we will bring this up, how some books you probably need to read and some you need to listen to. This is one you need to listen to because of all the imitations she does and the inflections in her voice. She was an incredible narrator, and I feel like this is one that you should listen to.
Yeah, so like every chapter she would say like chapter 9.
Exactly.
And every chapter that she would begin, I would just bust up laughing. And I was thinking, wait a minute, I thought that she had a Nellie voice for TV, but no, her real voice is her Nellie voice. So
and
that
I don't
was
know
awesome.
if you listen to you know how at the very end of the Audible books they have to read off the publishers and all that and all the credits? She was even just listening to her reading off the credits was enjoyable.
Yes.
I mean, that's how funny she's hilarious.
Yes.
And she put her own little spin. So I would highly encourage you, if you do listen to this book on Audible, don't shut it off at the end of the book. Listen to her read the credits because it is so funny.
Apparently I missed out because I did not go
you
that
have
far.
to read the credits.
But I
listen to the
I
credits.
think just the way she opened the book and the very front of the book, chapter 1. And I mean, she just caught me. I was like, okay, this is awesome.
We're in for a ride.
We're in for a ride, and she delivered.
Yes.
Okay, so if you're going to listen to this on Audible, it is 9 hours and 11 minutes, worth every 9 hours and 11 minutes.
Worth every minute.
It was released November 7th of 2017. And it received a 4.9 out of 5 stars, so you can't get much better than that. Okay, so the summary goes like this. Confessions of a Prairie Witch is Alison Arngrim's comic memoir of growing up as one of television's most memorable characters, the devious Nellie Oleson on the hit television show Little House on the Prairie. With behind-the-scenes stories from the set, as well as tales from her bohemian upbringing in West Hollywood and her headline-making advocacy work on behalf of HIV awareness and abused children, Confessions of a Prairie Witch is a must for fans of everything Little House. The classic television series and its many stars like Michael Landon and Melissa Gilbert. Gilbert's best-selling memoir, Prairie Tale, I love the name of her book, Prairie Tale. And, of course, the beloved series of books by Laura Ingalls Wilder that started it all.
All right. How did you hear about the book?
So this was great. It was an accident. I was looking through Audible at your library, and I saw it there, and I was like, And I just hit play, and I was hooked from the start. So I went out and took a walk while I was at work. I went down the walking trail, listened to whatever 15 minutes worth was, and I'd come back to the station, called you, and said, Joy, have you been listening to this book? And you said no. And I said, you've got to listen to it.
Right. And I had one night just kind of gone on a binge on, they have an Audible Plus, so you get one book a month on the Plus plan, and then they have an Audible Plus catalog, which were all free. Well, we know they're not free, but they come with your subscription. And so I love memoirs, so I just started choosing memoirs. And sometimes they're only available for a certain amount of time. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, sometimes they're only aware for a certain amount of time, but I thought the title threw me off a little bit because, we're good little innocent country girls. And I was like, oh, I don't know. The title's a little racy. And, I thought so.
I just thought she kind of had a clever way of saying, yes, I was a bee and I know it.
Right.
And I didn't really think because the title was that way, the book was going to be that way.
I was like, I don't know why. It just kind of made me a little leery of reading it.
Because you're thinking we're going to be recommending a book that has the
B word in it.
Yeah.
And we're like kind of pride ourselves on being clean and family friendly and G-rated.
We don't curse. And,
right.
We don't call people names.
Right. So when I saw that, I was like, I really want to read it, but I was a little worried. And we will go ahead and put the warning out here. Most of it's clean and all that, but there is some language in it. There's definitely some language. If you're a parent, I would definitely caution you letting young people in the room while if you're listening to it out loud.
Yeah, I agree. There is some language in it, but one thing the vibe I never got was that it was raunchy, except for when she talks about her comedy act.
Yes, her comedy act
we'll
gets
talk about that
pretty
a little bit
X-rated.
later.
Yeah. All right, so it was a freebie, and Angie was the one that called me and said, you got to listen to it. So I immediately started listening to it, and she was right. It is hilarious, and just hearing all the stories was so interesting. I do want to note that Nellie Oleson was an actual character based on 3 different girls that Laura Ingalls Wilder encountered in person as she was growing up. So basically, she took the traits of these 3 different girls that she knew and kind of rolled them all into one in her book. And so I don't think this character's pretty mean, devious, selfish, conniving. I don't know if there's anyone out there that really exists like that, but yeah, Laura just put them all 3 into one character.
I like to think of Nellie as being the original mean girl.
Yes.
I think she was the original. They all spawned from her.
She was the OG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of our mean girls today, they all have roots in Nellie Oleson.
Yes. Do you have any favorite, from the book or the TV series, any favorite scenes or quotes or anything from Nellie?
No scene actually stands out to me, but what I do remember watching the show was there was a lot of things that she consistently did that make up who Nellie was.
Yes.
And my memories of that was, well, first of all, just she could just cut you with her words. Like, she was always very, very rude and mean to Laura and Mary, of course, and she was very conceited and she was very entitled. But the thing that I always remember, and I don't know why, is her and her brother Willie would always, so they own the mercantile, the Olsons own the mercantile, and they would always be putting their hands in the candy dish like before they went to school, and their mother was like, oh, whatever you want, children, and then the dad was like, Nellie, get out of the candy. So that was one of my memories, is that was always in the candy. And I always think about her hair, because it was blonde, and it was always
gold ringlets.
Yes, and we find out later that was actually a wig. She talks about wearing a wig.
And I don't understand it. I realized this was the 70s, but they said on the set they actually used those kind of old-fashioned irons that they would lay on a stove till they got hot and then wrap their hair around them. And it was actually just damaging her hair so much. And finally, somebody got smart and said, we're just going to make a wig for her.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I do think it's interesting that it was so hot on the set. So she has on a wig, these long, old-fashioned dresses, and her very first day of filming, she got so hot that she passed out. She said the cast never let her live that down.
I completely forgot about that. I'm glad you mentioned that. But yeah, so that when I think of Nellie, I think about the dresses she wore, because she was richer than the other girls, and she always had nice dresses, and her hair was always golden and curled. And then I think mainly, though, it's her voice.
Yes.
I remember her voice because she has such a distinctive voice, and she was able to use it as a weapon.
Yes. So I always remember her crinkling her nose, and this happened in the book. This really did happen, according to Laura. They went to a party or whatever, birthday party, but Nellie Oleson supposedly wrinkled up her nose and said, "Country girls," in a very condescending way. So that's what I think of. Oh, you mean
like that actually happened in real life?
Yes, in the book, there's a scene where they get invited to Nellie's party, and then later on they return the favor with the party, and that's where Nellie gets covered in the leeches.
Oh,
remember that?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just always remember her going, "Country girls." And so another thing, now, and this didn't really happen in the books, but it happened in the show, was that Nellie was pretending to be disabled, like she couldn't walk, and she's in a wheelchair. And then Laura discovers that she sees her through a window or something. I don't remember, standing up. It's like, "That little Nellie, I wish I could do the imitation like she can, but that little Nellie, she really can walk, whatever." And she pretends to take her for a walk and pushes her down a hill. And in the book, Allison goes through all the stuff on that scene and how it happened. Well, come to find out, that's one of the most famous scenes in all of the Little House series shows, according to Alison Arngrim, that people love that show, that they love that episode.
Yes.
Okay, what did you learn from her book? Was there anything like new or interesting or shocking to you?
There was a lot. There was a lot to unpack here, and you and I, we've made quite a list, but let's go through them because they're all very interesting.
Yeah, I'll go real quick and then let you share your thoughts. Okay, so what shocked me was that her father was gay and everyone knew but her. Mm-hmm. And he was a very famous stage actor, I guess, very eccentric. And I just think that's interesting. And we did read a book about Jennifer Grey.
Yes.
Same deal.
Yeah.
Go ahead and talk about
it. No, he was gay and everyone knew it but Jennifer. So here we got a little theme going here, and it's kind of odd.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So they lived a really bohemian life. They were always moving. If he was on Broadway, they're living in New York. If he's looking for other types of acting, they're in LA or Hollywood, wherever. Mm-hmm. And they never knew from day to day, like many actors back then, or I guess even today, if they'd have money for food or rent. And it's so interesting to me. Another thing that really shocked me was that people actually thought she was Nellie Oleson in real life. Mm-hmm. Like the opening scene of the book is a lady comes up and says, "I forgive you." And she's like, "Okay, forgive me for what?" And then she comes to find out she thinks she's like Nellie Oleson and like treated Laura bad. And there's many stories throughout several, I don't know many, but there are a few stories throughout the book where people come up to her and spit on her. At school, she was called names because people couldn't separate her character on the Little House show and her in real life. And she said one day she just got so tired of it, she just learned to embrace it. Mm-hmm. And when somebody called her the B word, she was just like, "Thank you." And she learned later on, we're going to discuss this later, that actually empowered her to stand up for herself and get some things done that needed to be done and things like that.
Okay, I'm sorry, but as long as I live, I will never understand why people cannot differentiate a TV character from an actor.
I know. I don't get it.
What in the world?
They think that that's really going on, that people are living on a prairie in the 1800s. And
yeah, do people think those TV shows are watching are real?
I know. That just shows me, it's hard to believe people can be that ignorant.
Since we're doing so many of these memoirs, this is a recurring theme with actors and actresses, people not being able to disassociate them from their character.
I know. They can't differentiate between the real person and that they're a character on a TV show or a movie. It blows my mind. It blows me too. I do not understand it at all.
We need to research that.
Yeah, seriously. Another thing that I thought was really cool was that she and Melissa Gilbert were friends. Mm-hmm. And every time she would imitate Melissa Gilbert, oh my gosh, it was hilarious. Best parts of the book. You got to hear her imitate Melissa Gilbert. Super funny. But they were really good friends growing up. Back to them thinking she was a villain, I guess Laura, here I am calling her Laura. Melissa Gilbert and Allison were in the grocery store. They ran down to get Slurpees or something, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And they're in separate aisles. And one of the customers comes up and says, warned Melissa Gilbert, "I just want you to know that Nellie's in the next aisle. I don't know if you knew she was in here. Like, we really thought that.
Like they were really enemies in real life. Right.
Well, we've mentioned this briefly, but another thing that was super shocking to me is after her career ends on Little House on the Prairie, it was just, she kind of got dared. There was a stand-up actor who dared her to get up on stage and do an act. And she actually was pretty successful telling her Little House stories and talking about kind of this funny stuff, and was asked back. And long story short, she actually was a comedian for quite a while. She might still be, I don't know. But she just used her Little House material, telling stories about people on set. And, you know, she just kind of used her actual career as the material for her comic act. And it sounds like she was pretty successful. So what was shocking or interesting or new to you that you learned from the book?
One thing that really stood out to me that she mentioned was how popular Little House on the Prairie was. And we're talking about popularity across the world. She mentioned dozens of countries. She mentioned, I just wrote down a few: Iran, Bangladesh, Borneo, Sweden, Poland, Israel, Argentina, Germany, Japan. These were all countries that had huge followings. And it was either Iran or Iraq that she said they were absolutely huge. And I was thinking, okay.
She said Saddam Hussein was a fan.
Yes.
Didn't she?
Yes.
Oh, I thought that was interesting.
And she said there was one of the countries, and she said everywhere she went, people would tell her these stories about how much they loved the show. And one person told her that they lived in this little village out in the middle of nowhere, and they only had electricity for 2 hours of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how much their grid can handle. And she said, guess what they did in those 2 hours? They had an old TV. They watched Little House on the Prairie. The villagers would come around and stare through their windows into their living room, and they would all watch the episodes.
I forgot about that. That's awesome.
And she said these the letters would come in from her fans from all over the world, and they were all comparing the different episodes.
Okay.
So we've got the whole world is watching this show.
Yes.
And Nellie is famous worldwide. I mean, people know
and
her.
I'm going to go ahead and add this in since we're talking about her worldwide fans. She was invited to a talk show in France.
Oh, that was a great.
This is a great part of the book.
Story.
She's invited to this talk show in France. All right, and it's a 3-hour talk show, and they're teasing the audience and they're showing pictures up on the screen. Guess who's our surprise guest today? And they put a picture of Melissa Gilbert, and they're like, Laura. She said the whole audience was yelling out. And then they put Michael Landon's. They're like, Paul. And then they're like, Mary. And she said when they put her picture up there, she said the crowd went absolutely fanatical.
Yes, like they were so excited that it was Nellie.
Yes. And they're like, Nellie. Yeah. And so she goes out there and she says she has a translator. You know, and they're having to use a translator, but basically the host is like, why you so mean? Why you so mean to Laura? Why she nice girl? And, and then her answer was, well, Laura's family was perfect, and they had love and compassion, and Nellie didn't have that. And I guess the host was like, oh, and the whole audience are like, oh, you poor girl, we understand you now. You were just mistreated. You just wanted the love and compassion and security that the Ingalls have. And anyway, they all fell in love with her, and they said, we thought you were French the way you acted on the show. We thought you were French.
The impression I got was that she was like their favorite in France. Like everyone loved Nellie over the other characters.
Yes, it sounded like they liked her, and that's why they liked her, because they thought she was French. Because I guess she was kind of snooty and hateful. So they're like, well, you're one of us.
Like, we can relate to you. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So apparently she is super popular and famous in France, and I think she said she's going to go back, but she loved it so much. But that was one of my favorite anecdotes in the book.
It was really good. Yeah. So another thing that really was interesting to me and really surprising was her mother was the voice of Gumby and Casper.
Yes.
Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yes. And Underdog's girlfriend, Polly Purebred or something. It's been so long.
So Joy and I, we did watch Underdog when we were little.
And we even had a coloring book.
Okay.
We even had an Underdog coloring book. And I remember like coloring his cape and stuff and thinking it was a really cool.
And I thought Underdog was the cutest little cartoon, but I don't remember much about it. But anyway, so her parents were, they're known in show business for some quirky things, and that was one of them.
She said literally she could sit down on a Saturday morning and 3 out of the 5 cartoons she would watch would have her mom as character voice.
Yes.
She would be the voice of several characters.
Yes, her mom did lots of voices. Okay, and the other thing that really surprised me was, and Joy, this is one of the things I have to say I was kind of disappointed, but she admits she doesn't like the Little House books. She thinks they're boring. So I gotta say, strike one because we love the Little House books, and she thinks they're boring. Now,
I will say this: Michael Landon kind of said the same thing.
Yes.
They said someone asked Michael Landon, "Why don't you stick more to the books?" He said, "Have you read the books? She writes a whole chapter on how to make an apple fritter."
Exactly.
And so, when it comes to TV, they might be boring. You can't really translate them over to TV in some ways.
So,
but you're right. Strike one.
Well, I'm just saying, it kind of disappointed me to learn that Nellie wasn't crazy about the books, and that Michael Landon thought the same thing. And the other thing was, okay, this is a wholesome TV show. You know, we're thinking they've got Christian morals and principles, and it's all these.
Exactly.
And then you come to find out all these actors and actresses, they're back in the trucks drinking and smoking, and I mean, just like all their vices are being.
Yes, if you want the dirt on, if you want the dirt on the Little House cast, you need to read this book. Which I already knew that about Michael Landon because I've already read. Hopefully, we're going to get to the Karen Grassley book. She plays Ma. If you want to have a few heart attacks, we're going to do I'm not kidding. Like shock.
Like Ma would do that.
Yes.
Is it that type of books? I haven't read it, Joy has.
Oh, my goodness. I won't even go there because we don't have the time, but it was shock and awe. But anyway.
Not Ma.
Yes, Ma. So anyway, Michael Landon, there's some of the funny things about him was he didn't wear underwear on the set.
Right.
And he kind of walked like a rooster. He thought he was all... And everyone did say he was gorgeous. Tan skin, white teeth. They all admit he was gorgeous, but he was short. He would wear these... whatever they're called,
like
platform boobs to make him taller.
Yeah, and they said that on all the scenes they had to stage it where he looked as taller than everyone else.
So I thought that was funny. And yes, not all the crew, but a lot of the backstage and crew guys, they had a whole bar set up. It sounds like, and they had a little truck they would go in and drink their whiskey and smoke their. Oh, I guess he was a chain smoker. And then he would take them to the races, like when the season was over. Not some wholesome. Let's go. You know, and I didn't know that he was Jewish either. We're kind of getting off track here, but if you want to know the dirt on a lot of the characters, and Miss Olsen, she gets really into detail about the lady who plays
Catherine McGregor.
Catherine McGregor, she is funny. Yes. To me, if you're a fan of the Little House show, it is so interesting to hear the behind the scenes of what they were like on set.
Nellie does dish on pretty much everybody in the show, but it's more of a...
Yeah, she never just really takes somebody down.
Right, so that's the point I'm trying to make is you get to hear about what they were like on set.
Yes.
So you're not really finding out what their lives were like so per se, but you do hear what they were like on set.
Another interesting thing to me was, and she did sound super polite, super friendly. She has a great personality. She sounds very accepting of everybody. But she tried her darndest to be friends with Melissa Sue Anderson, it sounds like.
Yes.
She talks quite a bit about Melissa Sue Anderson and how she just was unfriendly, wouldn't budge as far as just talking and being friendly. And she said a few rude things to her.
All through the book, she doesn't pull any punches about Melissa Sue Anderson and how she was not a friendly person. She tried in vain to be friends with her, but Melissa would have none of it.
So this is another future podcast, I hope. So I went ahead and read Melissa Sue Anderson's
to be honest
memoir.
With you, because of the way she spoke about her, I kept thinking, okay, I want to hear what she says.
And so I went ahead and read it, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this. It's painful. It's like, see Dick run, see Ma cook. She just gives a few anecdotes from the books, and I'm sorry, it is so boring. And then she never really mentions Nellie. She mentions her, but it's just in passing.
It's like she didn't want to waste the ink to even mention her.
It's just she's very bland. And she gives us no scoops whatsoever. She just does a few, and this scene was fun when we got to go and we fell in the creek and like Nellie dishes.
Yes.
You know, we get all the dirt, but Melissa Sue Anderson, I'm sorry, I doubt she'll ever listen to this, she's too busy raising her kids and stuff, but maybe we won't even do the podcast. I would say save yourself reading the book. It is horrible. I had to push through. It's one of the most boring, non-eventful, bland, straight vanilla books I've ever read.
It almost sounds to me like she wrote a book because everyone else wrote a book.
That's what I feel like. And she did not narrate it. Another lady narrated it. I don't know how to explain it, Angie. To me, it is not worth the read.
Okay.
And I mainly just read it to see what she said about Nellie. Allison, because Allison had so much to say about her, and she didn't give her
right. You kind of wanted to hear her side
of the
like
story,
the relationship.
Just purposely left her out of the book because she didn't even want to put it on paper.
Right.
Didn't even want to mess
and
with
it sounds like even to this day, she won't even hardly acknowledge
yeah.
her.
I just don't understand her either. Like, after reading her memoirs, I'm like, why even write the book? I mean, you do find out who she marries, and even that was like, well, I always said I wanted to marry a guy who wore a suit. Something else, I can't remember what else she said, and he wore a suit and did this, so I thought, well, that's good enough for me. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just not
Sounds
good.
like there's no depth.
There's no depth. It's straight vanilla, very shallow. Okay, I'm totally getting off topic here.
So the last thing I was going to say, you're asking me what things I learned about the book. This is a really sad part of Allison's life, but it did happen. So you're listening to the book, it's funny, it's hilarious, and all of a sudden she throws this bombshell in there that, hey, oh, by the way, my brother, who also was a star in his own right at the time, he was on some kind of pretty popular show at the time, who was older than her, sexually molested me from the time I was 6 years old for like, I don't know, what it lasted, 4 or 5 years or something.
I think it was finally when she was 12 or 13 that she realized, oh, I can stand up for myself.
Yeah, she was too young to really understand her. So her mom and dad were gone all the time, and he was her quote unquote babysitter. And when I say he sexually molested her, that's just a polite way of saying what he did to her. Like, that's just touching the surface. I mean, he raped her.
Oh, yeah.
Repeatedly. Yeah, it was awful. And so she had to put it in there. It's her life. And she eventually became an advocate for sexually molested kids and incest.
And that's honestly the only reason she ever put it out there, because she was working to change a law, which this is the only thing that made me mad in the whole book. And it wasn't anything against her. It's there was a law in California that if a child was molested or sexually abused, if it was someone in the family, like a brother or a father or someone who had lived there for a while, they basically, according to California law, they just got a slap on the wrist. And she said sometimes they might not even do jail time at all.
She said like 30 days.
Yes, like it was nothing. And this is for rape. Things like horrible things. And so she went to bat and tried to get that law changed. And they just kind of was like, no. She went and sat before, was it a Senate? Or I can't remember the name. It was a big time committee in California.
She went and sat in a committee. Yes, it was like a legislative session or something like that.
Told them her horrific story, and they're like, basically, well, she was told, well, you may not have a chance because most of the people on this panel or on this board are the ones who made the law in the first place. Right. So I do not understand that, because how could you just give someone a slap on the wrist that basically incest, things like that? Yeah. So anyway, they did not change the law. So then she went on Larry King Live, and buddy, that changed things. She said, why would they listen to me? And they said, because everybody knows you. You've been in everyone's living rooms. People don't listen to people they don't know. They feel like they know you. So she used her status as a celebrity. They talked about it, and they put this group's website up there. And this is so funny. I guess all these politicians got inundated with emails, and they even had pictures of them up on a website saying, betrayer, or something like that. So long story short, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger and some of his cronies that said, okay, we'll change the law. And that's one big thing she's done. Thanks to her, they changed that law, and now you don't get a break just because you're related. So I thought that was very cool that she did that, and brave. So overall thoughts on the book. I just thought it was super funny, enjoyable, informative. I was impressed with how she took something that could have been a negative, like everyone hating the character of Nellie, and she just made it her own. That's and she had fun doing it, and she used it to her advantage. Like I said, because she was so hated and so well known, she could use her celebrity status for good, like changing that law about incest survivors and things like that. Yes. And we know she was a great actress, and she had to be believable, or people wouldn't have hated her so much. And I got to thinking, what would that show have been like without Nellie?
Yeah, it would have been a lot more boring.
It would have been so boring. It's a great book. I just thoroughly enjoyed the book. So is there anything else you want to add?
We were just talking earlier about how there's a part of the book she briefly describes each character, and then just kind of tells you who they were and what they did. But the way she describes them is absolutely hilarious. Like she talked about Mary, and I know Mary's the goody two shoes, and anytime Laura does something, she runs and she tells Mom and Pa. And then she said, poor Carrie. She said the girl didn't have a neck. She couldn't string she said she couldn't string a sentence together. And anyway, and every time she talked about Carrie, it was absolutely hilarious.
Oh, when she talks about the twins that play Carrie,
Sydney
so
and Lindsay
funny.
Greenbush.
Yes,
and it is funny because she'd say, I don't know what was wrong with this child, but every time she tried to talk, all she could do was grunt. And I had never thought about it, Joy, but if you go back and watch the show, it's true. Like every time
I don't
Carrie,
remember that.
yes, they'd be
That's
like,
funny
Carrie,
too.
you want to do this? And Carrie'd be like, rah, 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 rah. And like she.
And then she says, if you've met their
right.
mother, you would understand.
Right.
So I guess their mother was kind of a character.
But back to the part where you said she was able to take her character and do something good with it. So this was a quote that I actually wrote down that she said in the book. She says, any idiot can be liked, but it takes talent to scare the crap out of people. And then she said, playing Nellie and being marked a witch for life is the best thing that ever happened to me.
And she also said to play on that during her comedy routine because people were because it was already out there. Oh, you're a B, you're this. She said she gave her total freedom to say anything she wanted. She said she could be as honest and crude and rude as she wanted because people already knew what to expect because of her character.
Yeah.
And she said it just gave her this freedom.
Yes, and she said, I get so tired of hearing these other actors bemoaning the fact that they used to play this character. People can't, they can't separate them from their own character, and they just want to forget it. She is not me. She goes, I know who butters my bread.
Yeah, right.
And she said the character Nellie is what really made her famous, and she said, I embraced Nellie. She said, I embraced her, and like you said, it actually brought some good in the world because of her fame playing Nellie. And then the other thing that we've already mentioned this, but all throughout the book, just her dislike of Melissa Sue Anderson. She just does not like the Melissa Sue Anderson who plays Mary.
And this is what a great person she is, though. And she just talks about how happy she is now, despite of being abused all those years.
Yes.
And nothing. And now the statute of limitations is gone, and nothing can happen to her brother, even though he has admitted it. He has admitted, yes, I did all those things. And you know what's sick is he said, those were some of the best years of my life. I'm like, he's just messed up.
She was trying to get an apology, and he told her that was some of his best times, his best memories. So, I mean, you talk about twisted.
But despite everything she's been through and everything she's gone through, she's still very positive, and she talks about how happy she is. And she said, hey, if you ever want to go out and get drinks, I'll buy the first round of margaritas. I mean, she's still open to meeting her and being friends with her, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. I just want to say one last thing. I had no expectations going into this book. I had no idea, but it was refreshing. I was really surprised at how much I liked it, and she's very entertaining.
Very. Yeah. So who would you recommend the book, and if so, who would you recommend?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty obvious. I would recommend the book, and I would recommend it to all Little House on the Prairie fans. I mean, honestly, I don't think you could enjoy this book if you're not familiar with the Little House on the Prairie, because over half the book is probably references to the show. I just think that's who's going to enjoy it, is people who are familiar with the Little House series.
So how many Prairie Witches do you give this book?
Prairie Witches. Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, I am going to give it 4.5 Prairie Witches.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I am too, but it is hilarious. Okay, well, this was Confessions of a Prairie Witch, which we highly recommend. And thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on Twin Talk.